Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aisha and you're watching Samaa News. Here are today's headlines. At least 23 Palestinians were killed in Israeli attacks across Gaza on marking one of the deadliest days since an October ceasefire. Victims included children and first responders, while medical evacuations through the Rafah crossing faced delays. Israeli forces said strikes targeted northern Gaza after a reserve officer was injured near the Yellow Line. Residential areas were hit without warning, raising fears of further attacks. Since the ceasefire, over 520 Palestinians have died in Israeli operations, and humanitarian access remains severely restricted. Rights groups warn of a continuing crisis in Gaza. A team under U.S. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard investigated Puerto Rico's voting machines last spring, focusing on possible cybersecurity vulnerabilities, officials said. The operation, coordinated with the FBI, examined claims that Venezuela may have hacked the territory's electronic voting systems, but found no evidence of foreign interference. Gabbard's office said it took several machines and copies of data for forensic analysis, saying the review was aimed at identifying election system weaknesses rather than confirming external meddling. Nuclear talks between the United States and Iran are expected to take place in Oman on Friday, a regional diplomat said, as tensions escalate with a growing U.S. military presence in the Middle East. President Donald Trump warned that bad things could happen if negotiations fail, while Iran ruled out concessions on its ballistic missile program, calling it a red line. The talks were moved from Turkey at Iran's request, with Tehran now seeking strictly bilateral discussions with Washington. It remains unclear whether Arab states will participate. The diplomatic push comes amid confrontations at sea, including the U.S. downing of an Iranian drone near an aircraft carrier and an IRGC incident involving a U.S.-flagged tanker in the Strait of Hormuz. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio says his country remains committed to talks aimed at ending Russia's war in Ukraine, as a new round of US-brokered negotiations got underway in Abu Dhabi. Russia's lead negotiator described the first day of talks as productive, despite Ukraine accusing Moscow of exploiting a US-backed energy truce to stockpile weapons and launch a record missile attack this week. The European Commission has accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of abusing ceasefire talks to continue attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Commission spokesperson Anita Hipper said Putin showed no sign of wanting to end the war and was misusing negotiations while civilians were being killed. Her remarks came as Ukrainian and Russian negotiators began a second round of US-brokered talks in Abu Dhabi aimed at ending the conflict. Also, European Union ambassadors have approved the structure of a €90 billion loan for Ukraine, aimed at covering most of Kyiv's financial needs in 2026 and 2027, and sustaining its war effort against Russia. According to European diplomats, the agreement reached behind closed doors in Brussels allocates 2/3 of the funds for military aid and the rest for budget support, with Ukraine expected to buy weapons mainly from EU or domestic suppliers. Meanwhile, the Kremlin says Russian forces will continue fighting in Ukraine until Kyiv makes what Moscow calls the necessary decisions to end the war. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia's position remains unchanged and is known to both Ukrainian and US negotiators. Ukraine has rejected Russia's demand to hand over the rest of the Donbas region, territory Moscow has failed to fully capture after 4 years of fighting. That's all for now. For more updates, visit www.samaa.tv. Thank you for watching Samaa News.